Today, we're really happy to talk about how developer can boost marketing productivity thanks to Strapi and Stackbit. So if you want to go to the next slide. I guess so. Before we jump into the agenda and the great content we have for you today, we'll do a quick round of intro. So hi, I'm Victor. I've been with Strapi for about 3 years. I am the VP marketing there, and originally from France, but currently based out of the Bay Area. So Dan, you want to go next?
Yes, I'm Dan. I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO of Stackbit. And I'm also based in the Bay Area right now, in Redwood City specifically. And the company is fully distributed across the world. Tiff?
And I'm Tiff. I'm developer advocate at Stackbit, and currently based out of Calgary, very cold Calgary, but typically out of Toronto. Happy to be here today.
Awesome. Thank you both for joining. So we have the agenda as follows. So I'll do a quick introduction of Strapi. Then Dan and Tiffany will do a quick introduction of Stackbit, and then we'll go dive into the demo. And we'll keep plenty of time for Q&A at the end. That's we have a small group of people joining today. Let's make it interactive, and we look forward to your questions.
Yeah, and I think it's worth saying essentially this is this is a great webinar for you if you're already using Strapi. Sorry, a lot of S's here. It's very hard using Strapi, right? And kind of already have gone through this separation of code and content, which is really great and allows them to develop separately. And you want to add a visual layer on top of it, right? So I think that's a great thing for you. Or in general, if you're kind of curious about this like new headless world and you come from a more traditional monolithic digital experience platform and want to learn about, how headless CMSs work and like all the tools in the tool system, then I think this will give you a good background. And after the presentations, as Victor mentioned, we're extremely happy to hear any questions that you have and dig into it.
Awesome. If you want to go to the next slide and the next one. Perfect. So yeah, Strapi is about composable content management. So with Strapi, like there's a lot of customization capabilities at different level, from the admin panel to the Strapi engine itself. It has a really extensible architecture. There's a large open source community behind it, and so with that, Strapi intent is to reconcile cross-functional content management needs, no matter what's the use case or the service you want to integrate in your stack or the device where you want to display the content. So the idea is to give freedom to the different CMS stakeholder to ensure they work really well together.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for instance, developers, we want to give them the flexibility to choose their favorite tools and framework. So, for instance, like Next.js or Gatsby for the front-end framework, while giving Content Manager the freedom to build landing page autonomously without having to bug the developer every single time. And so we'll see how that gets even better when you combine Stackbit with Strapi. So we can go to the next slide. So when Strapi initially started, we were very much focused on the developer experience and making sure we can help the process of creating your API endpoints like directly from a nice intuitive UI. And then we added a number of features and rebuilt with Strapi v4 the plugin API and introduced a new design system that allows anyone to essentially extend Strapi through plugins. And at the same time, we released the Strapi Marketplace, which includes a number of integration with different kind of tools like for video like Mux or for SEO. So different kinds of features and integrations are available today in the marketplace. We have more than 100 plugins and a thriving ecosystem. I think there's new plugin submission almost every day. And so this was the focus in 2022. In 2023, the idea is to keep investing on the editing experience. We have a number of features that should really delight the content editors, such as audit log and publication workflow. So features that we are currently working on. And so through integration with tools like Stackbit, we also looking to take it one step further and enable that collaboration over the entire content lifecycle, not just as you build your first website, but also as you try to increase lead generation, or as you try to improve SEO, or if you try to improve the brand and A/B test and essentially marketing needs and concerns. And so this is where we're going with Strapi, and again through integration make things like content analytics or personalization or automation a reality. So we can go to the next slide. So what we see today is that Strapi provide a unique value proposition and ROI. So there's a clear security benefit with Strapi being 100% self-hosted, at least at the moment. Strapi Cloud is currently in beta, and we are onboarding new beta testers every week. But for now, Strapi is available mostly self-hosted as an open source project, and with the enterprise edition being self-hosted as well, and so 100% in control of your data. The second advantage is really the scalability. You can start really small for like a small project, and you can scale Strapi to more complex use cases and critical apps. And so what we see from when after the app went to production, we asked the developer what were the benefit, and oftentimes is the time to market has been drastically reduced. They don't need to. They have out of the box features and capability that saves a lot of development time, and similarly also helps the content management team, because again they're independent and autonomous. And the composability aspect is really around being able to extend the core capabilities of Strapi with plugins and integration. And as I mentioned, there's more than 100 plugins available today on the Strapi market. So if you haven't checked it out, I invite you to do so. You might be able to instantly, with like one click, add new features to your Strapi projects. And so that's pretty exciting. And next slide, please. So as I mentioned, there's Strapi, there's two different editions. So the community edition is the open source one, which comes with things like the option to go with REST of GraphQL for the API. It has a pretty robust media library, content internationalization, the ability to leverage components and dynamic zones, again, to edit a different part of your website on the fly. And then there's the enterprise edition, which comes with features such as role-based access control, SSO, and alert logs coming in Q1 of next year. So yeah, that's the difference between these two editions. And as I mentioned, the cloud is coming soon. If you go to the next slide, actually, there's a dedicated slide for that. Yeah, and so the wait list is we're currently working and inviting batches of users from the wait list. So if you have not already, we invite you to join as we are really getting closer and closer to release date here. So that's it. Now I talked enough. I'm excited to hear the Stackbit intro and get into the demo.
Sounds good. Thanks, Victor. So yeah, I think the everything you say makes a lot of sense, and like this ultimately what we want to do with our websites is drive impact, right? And they're there for a reason, either for enhancing your brand, or gathering leads, or funneling people into your app, etc. Right? So like the ability to have code and content separated, and the ability to change each one of them and have changes go live, as you said, like the speed of execution is what matters, right? And that's like the developer's speed to build, and it's also, once the site is like mostly built, you want to have the speed of going to market with a new change, right? You have a new partnership, you have a new sale coming up, you have something that needs to happen, and you want to make sure that you can get the change out there. And it's all about having a good user experience, because if you don't, your website is starting to just be a place where you put in money and invest in keeping it up and like making changes to it with like a lot of people involved, and marketers kind of bugging developers, and developers having to make content changes while they also have to build the app, etc. So it's a situation where slowly you start doing less and less changes, right? And that's not something we want, right? Like driving impact means we have to iterate quickly, and then we have to just see how things work, right? It's like, and you want them in production, you want to test them out, you want to switch them, you want to be able to not be reactive and kind of worry about it, but just go quickly. And this is what Stackbit is, right? Stackbit works with Strapi, for example, right? And like adds this layer that is more akin to what you're used to with a visual site builder, right? But a visual site builder is not a tool for more serious companies, because it either allows too much freedom, it doesn't have all these like awesome features that like Victor mentioned, audit logs and and permissions and workflows and stuff like that. And everybody can come in and decide, oh my God, I want this button to be like really, really, out there. So I'm going to make it purple with yellow polka dots, and it's going to be amazing. So your brand is heard, etc. So I think that the key here is working together in this ecosystem, right? And making sure that you have a headless CMS that you trust and you like building on. And on top of it, you can add a visual layer that essentially for developers enables them to control what the editing experience is, right? You give your marketers or content operations people more freedom or less freedom. Let's do the next slide, please.
For sure.
So the essentially, like if we're talking to developers, right? And I put my developer hat on, which Tiff can do better than I do, but I'll just like give a little bit of a background. What we believe in, right? Similar to the open source approach that Strapi has, we are very much an approach of you don't need to add any extra dependencies to your code if you want to work with Stackbit. And we'll see the demo and we'll see how things actually are built, right? But essentially you have, with one config file, you can just say, okay, I'm using Strapi as a CMS, here are what consists of a page for me, and that's it. One config file, and that config file allows us to communicate directly with Strapi, get all the content models, get all the content, and just know immediately where everything is on the page, and allow that visual editing experience to happen with a live preview. So we always see what you're doing in context. And of course, you can switch to another head if you want, right? So headless is all about the content is what matters, and its organization, and then you can display it in various ways, right? So for example, you inside of Stackbit, you can like, okay, let me actually look at this on a mobile device, right? How does it look on a mobile device? Work on a mobile device first, actually edit in it, not just as a preview. So that one config file essentially is like minimal. You can take it out. There's no vendor lock-in. If people still want to make changes in Strapi, because some changes will be better made in Strapi, right? Especially like if you want to like change your content model and things like that. That config file essentially allows us to automatically read all these changes, and people can work together both in the visual way and traditionally in the headless CMS if it's better, right? So I think that's the gist of it. The developer experience is really easy, and we also believe in like if you don't see value in it, you should be able to like take it out immediately. So that's the developer piece, right? And developers, right? I think we all know that we are here to essentially enable the business folks to do their job, right? And so we want to build something not that is just cool technologically, but like that allows this freedom of operation for the marketers and the content ops. Let's talk about the content ops for a second, or the marketers. So I think this is essentially what you would expect as a marketer to have around, right? You want the ability to change pages, edit them, ship them to production really quickly, see how they look on various resolutions, collaborate, get approvals, show it to folks, do all these things really quickly and without having to depend on a developer. Now, of course, this is about this is about good fences made good neighbors, right? So you have the interaction is there, obviously. We're going to build something. The component that was built by the developer will not have a certain ability. Maybe like you thought that you wanted just like one button for the serial unit, but now you actually want to have the ability to add a few buttons. So that one field now has to become like a list of objects. Cool. So of course you'll need a developer from your team to make that change. But once that change is made, you can leverage it throughout the entire, websites and that you have. And so the interaction is there, but mostly on the day-to-day, everyone is unblocked. So I think this is kind of, I've also talked enough, right? And I want to hand it over to Tiff so she can actually show you how this thing works in practice. And after the demo, we can just, any questions that you have about how things work together, or just Strapi, or just Stackbit, and we can take it from there.
Please leave in the chat there. Victor and Dan, if you could help me out though, as I can't see the chat while I'm sharing screen. But just to confirm, everyone can see my screen all right?
Yep.
Perfect. All right. So as you can see on screen here, I have a website that is using both Stackbit and Strapi. And this website is running locally, but it doesn't look like your average local development site running, thanks to the power of Stackbit. And before we get into Stackbit and a bit more into this site, I want to share with you where this content is coming from. So I'm going to open up my second tab here, which is Strapi. And in Strapi here, you can see I have created 4 collection types: menu, pages, person, and user. And for this demo, I'll primarily be focusing on user, and starting by creating a new entry. And Victor, I'm going to pass it on to you to share a bit more about the dashboard in a minute here. But before I do, one thing I really want to do in this demo is share with you, actually, if I go back to screen here and go down, share with you here how to easily create new content and then modify it and bring it into Stackbit. So there's 2 ways that this can be done, really. One, it's a 2-way sync. So you can create the content directly within Strapi or add new entries, and then it will come up immediately into Stackbit. Or we could also do it where we create it right in Stackbit and it will be reflected into Strapi. So a 2-way sync. Before I show that though, Victor, is there anything in the dashboard that you would like to go over?
No, one thing I'll add is, like, for instance, the content internationalization. If you have a website that needs to be translated in different languages, that's really neat to be able to leverage the power of Strapi to do that from the CMS. Yet if you have like very quick changes you'd like to make, more that are like branding related, that's really neat to be able to do it directly in Stackbit, because you can you get a look and feel of what the end result will be. So I think that 2-way sync is super powerful, because then the question becomes, okay, like depending on the types of change you want to make, you can choose which one to go to and get the best of both worlds. So yeah, just wanted to add that, like, for some of those features like content internationalization or role-based access control, you'd go to Strapi, and then for some of the other one, Stackbit would make more sense. So it's a pretty powerful integration.
You're right. I think internationalization is really an interesting topic, and it shows, I think, when people do translations on bulk, right, and they start just like translating a whole page, it's often I think an interface where like it's more serial, and you just like go about the job, and like you can like it feels kind of like more streamlined. I think that's a good word, right? I think like we've talked to a bunch of people that their job is to do translations in general, and like this is kind of the way they work, right? They have all the strings in one column, right, and all the translations. I think the interplay even within that feature works really well, because what I've seen, and I have like a lot of stories around this. The main problem with getting the translation absolutely right is the context, right? And I can tell you, I have a personal story that I remember. So one of the things that I worked at Facebook a long time ago, and one of the things that I wanted to bring was like photo filters to the very, very, very basic application. That was like what's called like no JavaScript, no nothing. It's called what's called the basic version of Facebook for feature phones. And I was like, wow, we're like changing the photo upload flow. Let's add like filters, right? So black and white and enhanced, and that's it, right? And you can do it. Now, obviously, there's no JavaScript, so you have to select one and then upload it, and you just get what you get. So we called it photo filters. It was never before a string that existed in that context. And sure enough, it went through the whole translation process. And luckily, one of my engineers who spoke Chinese and had the phone in Chinese, was able to like stop us from disaster, because that translation actually read photo censorship, because it's a filter, right? So filter censorship. Yeah. So context matters, and we see a lot of companies that are going to great lengths to start creating like screenshots or giving context as the translation happens, so to be able to like check it, right? So I think when translating, it is very useful to have a kind of like streamlined interface to type things in, then having the visual preview that's like inside of Stackbit, and you can make like tiny changes and see how things look. Do they wrap? Words are longer, etc. That interplay is really, really strong.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tiff.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, that's a great example. Thank you. That's great. I always like real world or real experience examples. They always stick better. Thank you both. All right. So while I am inside this collection type person, I'm going to create a new entry. The goal is to create a new team member. So let's say Joan Peterson. It's my mom's name. And let's give her a product manager. I'm also going to add in a bit of a bio. I like to empower people to build. All right, perfect. Save this here, publish. Now, if we go back, we can scroll down and see we have it here, Joan Peterson. Now back in Stackbit, if I scroll down, give me a sec here. If I scroll down to meet the team, so I'm going to add in this new team member, Joan, and there's two ways that I can do this. Now, one way I could do this is actually save an existing card. So for example, this individual here, save it as a preset. And from there, I can create a new card that will have the same style, same everything. For this example, I'm not going to do that though, because I want to show you a bit more about the unique styling that you can add. So I'm going to go add people, existing. And then scroll down to, where is Joan here? 1 second. Let me just refresh. My Wi-Fi is a little bit wonky here.
So while you're refreshing, I'll mention that this is essentially always synced. Like there's no caching layer in between. There's no anything else, that's funky. Any change you make is immediately synced back to Strapi as the source of truth.
Exactly. And I'll show more about that here. So you can see Joan Peterson here, add. Now, of course, it looks a bit different because there is no styling added to it, which I will add. But first, let's add in an image here. So for that, I can go into, I just clicked on the card here, went to edit, and then go add image block. And let's add this image here. I realize Neela has the same one. That's okay. Two different ones. Two. All right. So then here, if I exit out, you can see it still looks different. So let's add some styling properties to this here. So I'm going to go to the person card, click on style, and you can see here there is a bunch of different options. And this is really powerful. These changes, as a developer, I've had so many times in the past where marketers will be like, will come to me or they'll create a ticket and they're like, hey, Tiff, we need this text changed, we need this style changed. And it's a simple task, but for developers, you still need to switch gears, focus on that, and it does take time. So right in Stackbit, I really want to reiterate what Dan's been saying and highlighting as well. These changes can be made directly within Stackbit, and you can see how powerful this gets as the marketers want to build new pages or add on to them, make existing changes. So let's align text to center here. Layout, let's do center as well. And you can see here it's starting to come together. Now let's give this a frame to look like the other ones. So let's go extra large. And then let's go back into it for a second here. Oops. Frame style, pick a color, we'll do light. And then width, we will do 1. All right, so you can see it's starting to come together already here. Now let's focus on the image. And this is another thing. Although I was in the full person card, you can also focus on different blocks. So for image block, I'll go to styles and frame style. And let's give this full to make it a circle like the others here. Perfect. So you can see how simple that was to add in a new card for if a content creator or marketer was to come in and make those changes. And kind of going back to the two-way sync, I want to share with you here. So say right now it's Joan Peterson. Say we want to make this, let's make this Barb, different name here. And then if we go into Strapi and refresh here, we will see we have Barb Peterson as well. Now, if I wanted to change this, just to once again reiterate to, let's do Tilly Peterson, save, go into Stackbit, and you can see immediately your changes are reflected. So that's just one amazing thing that I get really excited about, because I've had this problem so many times as a developer, that really going back to, the title and the subject of this webinar, enabling developers to help boost marketers' productivity. You can see how this would really does help so quickly boosting their productivity. And I also want to share with you how you can simply how marketers can create new pages. So up here where it says home.
Wait, Tiff, can we, before you do it, I wanted to highlight a bunch of things. So the controls that you've seen, right, for the styles, right, they were like pretty extensive, and you had the ability to change a lot of things there, right? So that is controlled by the developers as well, right? So if you want to be more restrictive, you can decide which functions are exposed here, right?
Exactly. Yes, exactly. You can really set guardrails around what you want to enable your marketers to have access to do or not to do, and that can all be done right in. As I'm sharing my screen, I'm not sure if you can see. Can you see if I switch to VS Code right now?
Yep.
You can see it? All right. So this is kind of going back to what Dan was saying. This is the config file where you can see here we're connecting directly to Strapi, and it's through this file, which is essentially 14 lines. So it's very small. Developers can then have this access to make these guardrails.
Yep. Sounds good.
All right. So.
And one, sorry, I'll bother you with like 2 more things that I would really love to show, and maybe you were planning to show them later. One, I think the save as preset, I think, would be amazing to show, because it like shortcuts essentially everything that you've seen here. Like you've shown like how things are actually made. But then I think like the reuse would be great. And then if you can hover over one of the other persons and see the reference, like if you can highlight one of them, the whole card. Yes, you see that next to the person, you'll notice that there's like that link, right? If you click on it, essentially this is like, it means that this card, it's a reference to an object, right? And that object is a person, as you've seen. So this shows you essentially where else this appears. So in the case of a person, it's pretty straightforward that if you make a change, it will like propagate to the entire site. But this can also be individual sections, right? And Strapi has the ability to have both embedded content and reference content, right? And so you can see where this is, and like understand that making a change actually will impact all the other locations, and you can go and see where they're used. So I think that's a cool feature
Exactly.
to kind of have. Now, if you can show like the save
Yeah.
as preset, I think that would be like really good. And then we can
Yes.
talk about how it's like
Yeah.
it's a visual feature, but it just essentially creates content back in Strapi.
Exactly. And that was, yeah, let's save this as a preset. And then the goal will be, let's create a new page, a team page, and we will add it to that page. So let's call this preset name team members, and add it to our folder here. Click save. There you go. And then if I go to, let's create a new page called let's call it team members. And team will be the slug. Let's go add. All right, then we go to team page. And right now, as expected, of course, there's no content in there. But going back to what Dan was saying about saving this preset, I can simply go into page, add section, and the preset we just saved is added here. So if I go add to sections, you can see we've just created an entire new page with this preset as well, which is very powerful if you think about how often marketers want to add new pages, or as Dan was saying as well, reuse different presets or parts of that in different pages.
Cool. Sorry for I'm getting excited about the features and how this empowers folks to actually do work. So I think that's like a major it's a major time saver, right? Once you've decided, okay, this card looks like that, you definitely don't want to go through the process of starting from scratch every single time, right? And you don't you can do it with a copy and paste, but sometimes this is like, you're doing it and then you want to use it months later in a whole different page. So finding where that is, copying, pasting is a little bit of an issue.
So Tiffany,
exactly.
We have some questions from the audience, so I think it's a good time to pause it and start answering some of them. The first one from Guilherme was, are the images here in Stackbit available from Strapi? Meaning, can you upload in the media library in Strapi and pull those images directly in Stackbit?
Yeah,
exactly. Yes. Yeah, you definitely can.
Great. Yeah, this is what's happening essentially. The content is in Strapi.
Amazing. So just confirming that. And there's another question. How does the host of the pages generated with Stackbit work?
Where's that one? How does the...
I think...
Sorry, I'm just trying to... How does the
so, yeah, sorry. I have this weird pop-up that enables is blocking my screen, so I can't actually scroll the question. So thank you, Victor, for highlighting that. I see
no worries. I can repeat that if you want. How does the host of the pages generated within Stackbit work?
Okay, so essentially what happens, right, is that we're running your site, right, the preview mode in development in a separate container, right? So this is actually a live preview of your site. It goes through the same process as if you would build the page and just put it on the CDN. Out there is just kind of I like to think about it like Neo in the Matrix with all the plugs put in, so it has hot content reload, etc. So you don't have to go through the process of rebuilding, right? Usually you have to either set up a special preview and kick off you're making a change and kick off a rebuild. The way Stackbit does it is just runs this process, and you can actually see once we get back into the kind of showing the demo, we actually have the preview logs showing you. In this case, I think it's a Next.js application. We support any front-end framework, but in this case, we're showing a Next.js example, and then you can see how the container is running and what's happening there. You can restart it if you really need to, and stuff like that. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, Dan. And the second part is just to kind of reiterate that too as well. After that question, for more context, it says, today we have a solution that renders and serves web pages using Next.js through CloudFront and consumes data from Strapi. So this is a perfect example of that as well.
Yeah.
I can see the questions now, and there's another one from Vivek. If I have multiple content types like a hero image banner, set of cards, set of features, and so on in Strapi, how does Stackbit integrate with these content types in Strapi and my Next.js code? So multiple content types in Strapi. How does Stackbit integrate with these content types?
So
yes,
right. So with
in
that config
Next.js.
file, I'll give the high level, but like I think Tiff can like take it like down into like more technical terms. With that one config file, we essentially are in sync now completely with the content model that exists within Strapi. So if something changes, like we've shown content changes, right, in this demo, but we can also make a content model change, right? So if we wanted to have these users now have I don't know, a related user, right? So like a reference field to another user or something like that. You just make that change in Strapi. Nothing else is needed. You don't need to do special work within Stackbit to do it. So we read all of that, and we essentially enable you to work with that immediately. Yeah. So your application, right, has like two sides here. Inside of your application, the Next.js application, you will pull data, right, from, like, you have a process of like, how do you get the data from Strapi? And either you use, you use your own method, or you have like a more structured way to do it. This is just how your website is built. So we're going to show exactly, we're going to work with your application again, because it's your code. We're not doing anything proprietary to generate these pages. So if you decided to do something, we're going to not mimic, it's like, it's actually your code. So we're going to show exactly what it is out there. Tiff, did I mess it up, or is it more?
No, I think you summed it up perfectly. And to kind of add on to that, it's not necessary. And, Vivek, going back to multiple content types like hero image, set of cards, to kind of reiterate as well what Dan mentioned earlier is, even if you have different content types, it's very specific to, you can set guardrails around different components that you want marketers to be able to how much do you want them to be able to edit as well, which is really powerful. So going back to your example, say the hero banner, you want them to be able to edit it very well and have a lot of control over it. But then there's another part where you don't want any access. So it's really up to the developers and the team in general, of course, but the developers, what they want to give access to, and work closely with the marketers to decide that.
Right. And we're going to respect everything that you've defined, within Strapi. So for users to make changes, right, inside of Stackbit, they will authenticate with Strapi, right? So this is exactly like there's no extra work that you have to do or bypass whatever was enforced, right? So I think you can make it so that it's like essentially, if you can edit a field within Strapi, you'll be able to edit it within Stackbit, right? Potentially, you could make it like less accessible. So on like maybe you can't highlight it or whatever. But if you go dig in on the side, you can still get to it because this is what the permissions are. And if you have like field validations, those will also be run. So this is like, we've really kind of thought about this. There's no, like, we respect the choices that you've made when picking your stack. Right. And if you've decided that, you are going with Strapi and you're configuring it in a very specific way, we're going to maintain that. Everything that you've decided is going to be maintained and fully enforced.
And I think that's really where we have the same philosophy when it comes to developer freedom. It's just, you should be able to pick your stack. In some cases, you've already made choices. And, what Strapi and Stackbit allow you to do is to not have to re-platform and kind of change everything and onboard people into new processes. You want to kind of keep what you have and give you the freedom to choose like how you want to compose that application with the best tool for a given job. So I think that's where we really align on the overall experience.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I agree. And I can share my screen again too if there's more questions. Oh, I see there's one more actually. Is there any way to serve data from another database that works with Strapi? So, Jose, yes, we support multiple content source integrations. So you can use Strapi and also another content source as well. And so you can also use multiple.
You can also use multiple Strapi instances as well. I think maybe that was also the question. So essentially
Yes.
your page, yes, can have, if you have like multiple Strapi sources, you can do that, as Tiff pointed out. If you happen to also have some of your data in flat files, and those make sense to stay outside of Strapi for some reason that you've like decided to configure, then you can make that editable too if you choose, right?
Yeah, exactly. I see there's another person typing for a potential question. I know we're getting close to time here. That was the main part of my demo, so we can go right into questions, or if there's anything, Dan or Victor, that you would further like to highlight. I see someone's asking a question here. Questions are always good.
Yes, I think it gives us opportunity to answer things we hadn't thought about.
Yeah, Dan, just to confirm, you still can't see the chat, right? I just don't want to be reading these out.
No, you should.
You're also being able to see.
I can't. I see the chat,
perfect.
but I can't scroll it. So it's like I saw that Paul was typing, but I don't see the question.
Okay, perfect. So yes, Paul, great question. Paul asks, how can one get started with Stackbit? Is there an example project that showcases the Stackbit integration with Strapi?
Yeah.
Do you want to take this down, or do you want me to?
So I think if you can show the project, right? I think like we can share it. Like we're in final stages of putting that, like finalizing everything. The demo works, and you can get access, to it if you want to. Maybe you can show like the file again and how that worked, right? Like walk them through the process of taking like an existing Strapi setup, and then what would you do to get that working?
So Dan, are you referring to going back in the code base for that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so essentially, like, it sounds like they have a setup where they've chosen Strapi, and now they want to like, what do they need to do to their code to kind of like layer on Stackbit?
Perfect. So as you can see, and don't mind my terminals, I was playing away here prior. So as you can see, basically, say this was just your project with Next.js or whatever tech stack you're bringing and using Strapi. All you need to do, and I will link some resources down below, but simply all you need to do is create this Stackbit config file you see here. And then in this config file, you will define your content sources. So you can see here, we've defined with Strapi, passed in our access token, and then the URL. And I have Strapi running locally as well. As you've seen, when I go back to here, you can see it's up and running on 1337. And then in here, let me just stop my terminals and show you. So let me just do a visual. Give me a sec here. Hide. All right. A visual. Now nothing is running. So if I was just to run it locally, I'm just showing you this because I think it will kind of help visually see what we are speaking about. So this will show you the project running locally, localhost 3000. You can see all of a sudden there is a lot that has been taken away for your content editors and marketing. Everything's been taken away. Then what you can do, now that you have this Stackbit config file and installed Stackbit, you can simply run stackbit dev. This will spin up this URL here, which I can then open. And as Dan mentioned, spin up a container of your local development site. And then you can see right here all the added features immediately. So it's really straightforward. And
oops.
We can link some resources down projects that you can fund with. And then this one as well, we will share shortly as well. So you can add on to it and play around with it as well.
Yep. Did I answer the question? See, Paul is typing again.
Paul is typing again. This is great. Paul, did that answer your question? I just want to confirm. That'll be awesome. Yes, I think so. That will be awesome. I really want to jump in and play with it. Nice. Thank you. Perfect, Paul. Yes, we'll link some more resources down below. But yeah, it's really fun.
Right. Yeah. So we'll send like a follow-up to all the people in the webinar. You can also, if you're eager to get started right away, you can like email tiff@stackbit.com or dan@stackbit.com, and we're gonna help you there. Did we lose Tiff, or did she?
Yeah, I think she dropped.
Wi-Fi looks like a bit spotty.
For everyone in the attendance, if you want to, maybe we have time for one more question or two. So if you want to ask one, please add it to the chat. While we wait, one question for you, Dan. What's on the roadmap for Stackbit?
Oh, so many things. Tiff is back.
Sorry about that.
Thank you. It's a great question. So yeah, I think what we're adding, as things go on, is the ability. One thing that I'm really excited about is the ability to also make essentially, we're calling this like make smarter decisions with data, right? So one aspect that people who work on websites have is obviously where the content is coming from, right? And this is what we've shown all throughout this webinar. There's a whole different set of tools that you're using when developing that doesn't go into the actual end website. What I'm referring to is, for example, analytics, right? As one set of tools. And so one of the cool things we're really excited about for Stackbit is that we're adding the ability to customize the whole editing environment, right? So we already said that developers can decide, which options are available to whom, or it's like, do I want to do atomic design and have my marketers kind of understand that concept and be able to create pages completely from scratch, and everything is a row and like a set of columns, and every column has more rows, and you plug things in? Or I'm like much more prescribed, and it's like, no, you have a hero unit. That hero unit has like a bunch of configurations and things you can play around with, as we've seen, but that's it, right? But more than that, we'll be able to like say, hey, you know what? I want to add a button, to the Stackbit UI, and that button should bring up, an internal page that I have about guidelines, how to build pages, and I want to see it right in front of my face. I want to see analytics, right? So that I can integrate with Google Analytics or whatever, and I want to see them overlaid on the page. Or even like make the content model, right, have essentially an analytics block that will tell like, track this or don't track this, and call this button like this variable, right? So a marketer can decide, oh, you know what, I want to track how this button is doing right now, and I have the ability to make the change visually without asking a developer, hey, can you add like Google Analytics code to this button right now? So this extensibility is like something I'm really excited about, as well as like adding a lot of like publishing controls, like if you want to, and these would interact, with Strapi around if you want to schedule something, if you want to see visibility of who's working on what, etc. Do we have more questions? Because I see more people typing, but I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's mostly.
It's what, Dan? It's just really nice comments, actually.
Cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I guess I think it's time to wrap it up. But thank you so much for joining, Tiffany and Dan. Really excited about the roadmap items you just shared, and so we'll be looking forward to those and sharing the recording with everyone. So yeah, thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
We're excited to get you on the platform, so reach out.
Yes.
Sounds good.
All right, folks. Thanks, Victor. Thanks, everybody.